Welcome to The Psychology of Us. This podcast is created by R.J. Starr, a public intellectual and independent psychology educator. The material presented is educational and interpretive, examining psychological life as a domain of understanding rather than intervention. It does not provide therapy, diagnosis, or professional guidance. Each episode stands as a complete work of public psychological inquiry.
So how often do you find yourself, just scrolling through the news, or maybe you're sitting in a team meeting and you hear phrases like my truth or your truth or even alternative facts?
Oh, they are everywhere right now. You really can't escape them.
Right. And on the surface, they sound, incredibly diplomatic. Like they sound like genuine attempts at inclusion or maybe just really clever political spin to sort of smooth over a rough situation.
Yeah, they absolutely carry that veneer of diplomacy. It sounds like, we're just expanding the room to accommodate everyone's personal experience.
Yeah.
Or, depending on who's speaking, it provides a highly convenient shield against being proven objectively wrong.
Exactly. But what if those exact phrases, these seemingly harmless attempts to be inclusive or to dodge a tough reality, are actually like dismantling the very foundation of our shared reality?
Well, that is exactly the argument we're looking at today.
Right. So today we are doing a deep dive into R.J. Starr's psychological architecture of truth to find out why this is happening.
And Starr is a theorist in theoretical and integrative psychology.
Yes, and his essay is titled Truth as a Load-Bearing Structure in Ethical Life. And it basically suggests that treating truth as something negotiable doesn't make society more compassionate. It actually makes it entirely less accountable.
Which is, it's a profound wake-up call of an essay. Starr isn't just looking at the cultural friction we see every day, right? He's analyzing the underlying psychological mechanics of how we process reality itself.
Yeah.
And, why we are suddenly so willing to let the idea of a shared reality just go.
Right. And our mission for this deep dive is to unpack those exact mechanics. But before we get into the architecture of the human mind, I do want to clarify something right up front.
Definitely a good idea.
Yeah, because our goal here is absolutely not to take a political stance, right? Or to validate or condemn any specific cultural movement, whether that's left, right, or center.
Right. That is a really vital distinction to make. We are just looking objectively at the cognitive frameworks that Starr presents.
Exactly. We're just impartially reporting on Starr's work, exploring the mechanics of how human beings perceive reality. We want to examine why the normalization of phrases like alternative facts might represent a fundamental cognitive collapse.
Right. So no endorsing any political viewpoints. We're simply conveying the psychological ideas from the source material.
Perfect. So to understand how truth collapses, we first need to understand what it actually is. And Starr gives us this vocabulary that separates four categories we constantly conflate, I guess.
We do, yeah.
All the time.
Those are truth, fact, perspective, and meaning.
Right, and we treat those four words as synonyms in our daily lives, but structurally, they are wildly different phenomena.
Okay, so let's break them down. What is truth in this framework?
So Starr defines truth as what is real, completely independent of anyone's awareness of it. Like, it exists whether you are looking at it or not.
Okay, so the big picture reality.
Right. A fact, however, is a specific, verifiable instance of that reality. So it's a measurable outcome, a date, a physical action. So if the truth is the overarching reality of a situation, a fact is like the specific data point you can point to within it.
Yes, exactly. Then we introduce the human element with the third category, which is perspective.
Huh.
This is the specific position from which you encounter that reality. So your perspective shaped by your vantage point, your personal history, your temperament, even your current stress levels.
Wow. Okay. And the fourth one?
The fourth category is meaning. And meaning is the significance you assign to that encounter after you have filtered it through your perspective.
Okay. I think an example would really help here. And Starr uses this incredibly relatable scenario like an office performance review.
Oh, yeah. A scenario that is probably happening in an office somewhere right this second.
Totally. So imagine an employee walks out of her annual review and tells her coworkers, I was attacked in there.
Right.
Let's break that down using Starr's framework. The truth of the situation, the overarching reality, is that a major project deadline was missed.
Okay, and the fact, which we could verify if we had a recording of the meeting, is that the manager made a single, calm statement noting that the project was submitted 3 days late.
Right. But then the employee's perspective comes into play. Her perspective is that of a subordinate in a power dynamic, receiving unwelcome news about her performance. Maybe she's already worried about her job security.
Yeah, and that position fundamentally alters how the manager's words are received.
Exactly. Which brings us to the meaning. The meaning the employee builds from that interaction is that she's being singled out, unfairly targeted, or, in her words, attacked.
Right. And Starr points out that every single element in that chain is real.
Wait, real in what sense?
Well, the missed deadline is real.
Yep.
The manager's calm tone is real. The employee's anxiety is real. And her feeling of being targeted is real.
Okay, I see.
But the cognitive collapse happens when we smash all of those distinct categories into a single, unassailable claim like, I was attacked.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because there's supposed to be a sequence, right?
Exactly. Starr emphasizes that these 4 categories are designed to work in a sequence. You discover a fact from a specific perspective, and you build a meaning out of that fact.
Right.
But a meaning doesn't retroactively become a fact just because you feel it intensely.
Mm-hmm.
And a fact doesn't become optional just because your perspective didn't like it.
It kind of reminds me of looking at an optical illusion. Like, imagine a 3D cylinder sitting on a desk.
Okay.
If my perspective is looking straight down at it from the ceiling, all I see is a flat circle. But if your perspective is looking at it straight on from eye level, you see a flat square.
Right. Yeah.
Both of our perspectives are genuine, and we're both pulling accurate data. But the truth is the 3D shape itself.
Yes, exactly.
If I start demanding that you treat the cylinder purely as a circle and tell you that a circle is, my truth, I'm basically forcing my limited perspective to overwrite the actual truth.
And that overwrite is where accountability begins to fracture. When someone's sincerely held meaning becomes indistinguishable from an objective fact, we lose the stable ground required to resolve conflicts.
Because there's no longer a shared 3D shape to point to.
Exactly.
So if our internal emotions can overwrite the 3D shape, let's look at how that actually happens in the brain. Because Starr talks about this internal distortion through what he calls the salience distortion model, right?
Yes, the salience distortion model. This is his explanation for the phenomenon of my truth.
I really want to dig into the underlying mechanics of that. Like, how does the brain actually reorganize reality? Is this like a survival mechanism kicking in?
It is entirely tied to our evolutionary wiring.
Yeah.
So under significant emotional strain, say, feeling threatened in a performance review, your brain's threat detection system kicks into overdrive.
Okay.
It floods your system with adrenaline and forcibly redistributes what it perceives as salient or, important for your immediate survival.
So it creates like a tunnel vision.
Huge tunnel vision. Certain minor details, like a slight frown from the manager, become incredibly vivid. They just glow in your memory.
Right.
Meanwhile, the broader context, like the fact that the manager spoke calmly and offered help, gets entirely deleted from your cognitive processing because your brain didn't deem it necessary for surviving that immediate threat.
Wow. So the person walking out of that room isn't just making things up to play the victim.
Not at all.
To them, the picture that remains doesn't feel like a partial interpretation. It feels like an unmediated, pure encounter with exactly what happened.
That is the critical distinction. When someone says, "This is my truth," they are rarely lying. This isn't a failure of personal honesty.
Right.
It's a structural feature of how the human brain processes emotionally loaded experiences. A person can report an event with 100% sincerity, feeling the absolute conviction of their memory, and still be entirely mistaken about the objective, factual elements of the event.
Okay, but this is where I get really uncomfortable, though. I'll just play devil's advocate for the listener here. If someone has been marginalized or historically silenced, and they finally find the courage to stand up and say, "This is my truth," telling them that their internal processing is distorted feels incredibly cold.
It does feel cold, yeah.
Aren't we just giving people a convenient loophole to demand, objective proof for the emotional damage they cause? It just feels like dismissing my truth invalidates their lived experience.
That tension you are feeling is exactly why this phrase has gained so much cultural traction. I mean, the impulse behind my truth is almost always protective.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's an attempt to put a name to a pain that someone else has previously dismissed or erased. And Starr acknowledges that. But his framework provides a crucial boundary, which is this. Sincerity is not evidence of structure.
Oh, wow. Sincerity is not evidence of structure. Let's really unpack the weight of that.
Yeah. It means that the intense pain or anxiety a person feels is absolutely real. And it is a fact that must be taken seriously in any ethical relationship.
Right.
But the intensity of the feeling is only evidence of the feeling. It cannot serve as structural evidence of the objective event.
Okay.
When a culture starts treating the sheer intensity of an emotion as undeniable proof of its factual accuracy, we break the mechanism of inquiry.
Ah, I see.
My truth ceases to be an invitation to understand someone's pain. It becomes a rhetorical fortress. It gets deployed to prevent any questioning, because questioning the facts is suddenly equated with attacking the person's feelings.
It shuts down the investigation before it even starts. Because if we merge the feeling and the fact into one fragile object, I can't even ask for clarification without being accused of denying your humanity.
Exactly. We lose the ability to ask, I see that you are hurting, but did it actually happen the way you remember it?
Right. So if my truth is an internal distortion where the brain's survival instincts delete facts to highlight feelings, it makes me wonder what happens on the flip side.
The other side of the coin.
Yeah, what happens when the facts are entirely true, but the person presenting them is being manipulative?
Yeah.
That brings us to the opposite distortion, alternative facts.
Right. So if my truth is driven by internal emotional intensity outrunning accuracy, alternative facts operates through an external manipulation. And Starr calls this the meaning dissolution model.
Meaning dissolution model. I am so fascinated by how a person can lie without actually lying. Like, how does this model achieve that?
It achieves it through the weaponization of isolated facts. In this model, the information being presented is technically undeniably accurate.
Okay.
The statistic is mathematically sound. The quote is a verbatim transcript. But the information fails to cohere into an honest picture because the speaker has deliberately stripped away all the relational and situational context required to understand it.
Oh, it's like severely cropping a photograph.
Yes.
Imagine you have a picture of two people on a sidewalk, right? And one person has their hand raised high in the air because they're waving to a friend across the street.
Right, okay.
But if I crop that photo super tight, removing the street, removing the friend, removing the smile on their face, and I just leave the raised hand near the other person's face, the photo is real.
It is.
It's an exact, unaltered image of where those pixels were in that split second. But the meaning I'm forcing you to take away, that an assault is about to happen, is a complete fabrication.
That captures the mechanics of it perfectly.
Right.
And what makes this so insidious is that the person distributing the cropped photo can defend themselves by saying, look at the image. I didn't alter a single pixel. This is a fact.
Ugh.
They use individually defensible materials to support a conclusion that the full, uncropped picture would never support.
This feels fundamentally different from just telling a lie.
It is. It's a completely different category of offense.
Mm-hmm.
A person who flat out fabricates a story, lies about what happened. A person who uses alternative facts, lies about what reality means. And when a culture only focuses its energy on punishing flat-out fabrications, like the blatant lies, but shrugs off context stripping as just, clever PR or political spin, it normalizes the idea that context is optional.
So we excuse the person who cropped the photo because technically they didn't Photoshop anything in, but the damage to the truth is exactly the same.
Sometimes the damage is worse, honestly, because alternative facts come with the camouflage of legitimate data.
That is terrifying. So we have these two major distortions pulling at our reality. We have the internal deletion of facts through emotional salience, and we have the external manipulation of true facts through context stripping.
Right.
Why does this matter to you, listening on your commute or at your desk? To understand the real-world stakes, we have to look at how these tiny distortions snowball into systemic collapse.
And Starr illustrates this through what he calls the meaning hierarchy system. You can visualize this system as a massive suspension bridge.
Okay, let's build the bridge. What are the components?
Well, the raw data points, the verified facts and lived experiences, are the steel tension cables.
Got it.
As you weave those cables together, they build into interpretations. Those interpretations bundle together to form our shared commitments.
Okay.
And those shared commitments are the roadway of the bridge itself. They're the high-level societal concepts like justice, institutional trust, shared memory, and personal responsibility.
Okay, I'm picturing it. And where does truth sit in this engineering metaphor? Is it one of the cables?
No, truth is not a component of the bridge. Truth is the bedrock on either side of the river.
Oh.
It is the unmovable foundation that the anchor blocks are sunk into. If reality is singular and discoverable, if the bedrock is solid, the tension cables of facts hold tight, and the roadway of justice and trust can carry the weight of society.
But if reality is treated as negotiable.
Right. If we decide that my truth or alternative facts are valid substitutes for objective reality, the anchor pulls out of the bedrock.
The bedrock turns to mud. and the tension cables snap.
Exactly. And watch what happens to the roadway when that happens. If there's no shared discoverable reality anchoring us, what does justice become?
Just a free-for-all, I guess.
Justice ceases to be a fair evaluation of facts
Hmm.
and simply becomes the prize for whoever has the most persuasive narrative or, whoever can rally the loudest mob.
Shared memory collapses, too. It loses its fixed historical character and just gets retroactively revised to fit whatever narrative is most useful to whoever happens to be in power today.
Right. And personal responsibility completely vanishes because if no one can agree on the objective facts of what actually occurred in that performance review or in that political debate or, in that international conflict, how can anyone ever be held answerable for their actions?
I think this connects so viscerally to our daily lives. Whether you're a manager trying to mediate a dispute between two employees, or a partner trying to resolve an argument with your spouse, or just a citizen trying to read the morning news, if you allow the foundational reality of what occurred to become a matter of preference, true accountability becomes mathematically impossible.
It does. When we erode the assumption that a singular reality exists, our relationships and our institutions do not become more inclusive or humane. They become fundamentally unstable.
Right.
Now, Starr is careful to point out that institutions and authority figures are not always honest brokers of the truth either.
Sure, they strip context all the time.
Exactly. Institutions strip context all the time to protect themselves. But Starr's framework is a defense of the category of fact itself. We cannot afford to let the very concept of objective facts become negotiable just because the negotiation makes a difficult conversation easier in the short term.
Which brings us back to that really difficult ethical tension. Because if we demand strict adherence to objective facts in our personal relationships, I feel like a jerk.
It's hard.
Yeah. If my friend is crying and telling me their subjective, highly distorted memory of an event, and I say, well, hold on, let's verify the data points, I sound incredibly cold.
You do, yeah.
How do we navigate that? Does Starr offer a way to have compassion without surrendering our grip on reality?
He does, and this is where the framework offers a really profound ethical resolution. As we noted earlier, the impulse behind asserting a personal truth is usually a protective attempt to name a real pain.
Right.
Starr argues that taking someone's pain seriously does not require accepting their factual account of the event as complete and unrevisable.
Oh. So validating a person's pain and agreeing on the sequence of events are not a package deal.
They are not, and we really need to stop treating them as if they are. It is entirely possible and necessary to listen to another person's account with total seriousness.
Okay.
You can grant that their emotional pain is absolutely real. You can genuinely seek to understand the perspective that led them to that meaning. But you can do all of that while maintaining a hold on the objective reality of the situation.
Wow. That is such a liberating concept for anyone who has ever felt trapped in an emotional argument. You can look at a friend or a colleague and completely validate their humanity. You can say, I see how much this hurts you, and I believe that you feel targeted. But you don't have to admit that a malicious attack objectively occurred if the facts don't support it.
Right.
You don't have to participate in their cognitive distortion to be a good friend.
And Starr takes it even further, actually. He argues that extending compassion through factual surrender isn't generous. It's actually dishonest.
Honest in what way?
Well, true respect treats the other person as an autonomous adult who is capable of being wrong about the specific facts while still being right about their core dignity.
Oh, I love that.
If you just nod along and surrender to their distorted facts because it's, easier to avoid the conflict, you are treating them as a fragile creature who cannot handle the real world.
It's incredibly condescending. You're essentially patting them on the head and saying your truth is valid while secretly knowing their grip on reality is entirely compromised.
It is. A truly humane culture or a truly healthy relationship does not soften its relationship to objective facts. It maintains what Starr calls the discipline of reality.
The discipline of reality. That takes work.
It takes immense work. It's the possibility of being believed when something objectively did happen, and the critical possibility of being corrected when something did not.
Right.
That shared discipline is the only thing that makes ethical life bearable. Compassion that is extended toward a fiction doesn't actually protect the person who's hurting, and it certainly doesn't correct the issue causing the pain.
It just kicks the collapsing bridge further down the road.
Exactly.
Okay, let's pull all these threads together. Today, we have ventured into the cognitive architecture of reality through R.J. Starr's frameworks. We untangled the essential differences between the overarching truth, the verifiable fact, the vantage point of perspective, and the assigned significance of meaning.
We examined how our own survival instincts and emotional intensity can create the internal distortion of my truth through the salience distortion model, effectively blinding us to context.
Yeah. We looked at the external distortion of the meaning dissolution model, where perfectly accurate facts are weaponized and stripped of context to create the illusion of alternative facts.
And we anchored all of this in the meaning hierarchy system, recognizing that truth isn't just a conversational preference, it is the bedrock that holds the tension cables of our shared society together.
Right.
Without a commitment to a singular discoverable reality, the bridge of justice, memory, and accountability simply falls apart.
You can have boundless compassion for someone's perspective, but you cannot surrender the facts to it. It requires the discipline to keep looking at the 3D shape on the table, even when forcing yourself to see only a flat circle would be so much more comfortable.
It's vital to remember, especially when comfort has come to mistakenly look like kindness.
What an incredible deep dive into the mechanics of how we see the world. We're going to leave you with a final, lingering thought to mull over as you step back into your day. The next time you find yourself in a heated disagreement, whether at the office or in your living room, and you feel absolutely, undeniably certain of your stance, take a breath, step back, and ask yourself a hard question. Are you defending the unvarnished truth of what actually happened, or are you just fiercely protecting the meaning you assigned to it?
This has been The Psychology of Us. The work presented here is part of a public psychological archive by R.J. Starr. It is educational and interpretive, not clinical or advisory. Episodes are published as finished reflections and are intended to be encountered as complete works.